Toxic workplace. Who's responsible? Is it the leaders or is it the employees? Of course, the leaders blame the employees and the employees blame the leader. In this video, I'm going to try and break it down and provide some advice on how to deal with and overcome that toxic work environment, regardless of where you sit in the organization. First off, I've worked in great cultures over the years, and I've worked in some very toxic cultures over the years, and I know which one I prefer. I have been an employee, and I've also worked my way up through the different stages of leadership over the last 13 years. And I have worked alongside some great leaders and some great cultures, and likewise along some average. Also, I get the opportunity every day to work with now some great leaders in the coaching aspect. And I also get the opportunity to go out onto the field to talk to a lot of the people within the businesses to get some good feedback for the companies so they can really assess where their culture currently is and come up with ways to improve them. Now, I've heard a lot of suggestions and a lot of feedback from employees. But first off, let's start with a bad culture. And anybody that's worked in this environment, there's a lot of words like toxic work environment, unhealthy, unpleasant to work in. But what does it really look like? It usually has the us and them mentality, whether it's day shift, night shift, management, employees, different aspects. So there's usually some form of that us and them mentality within that culture. And that usually brings in the snide comments about the people in the business, the other leaders, the business as a whole, things that we're not doing well. It's that negative commentary that's always around. You can hear it as you walk through the hall. You can hear it in different people's offices. You can hear it out on the field. It's always there, that negative comment, that backstabbing that goes on in the background. And that usually leaves people very drained. It doesn't matter where you sit in the organization, whether you're a leader or whether you're one of the employees. Emotionally, that can take a lot out of people, and people don't enjoy being in that work environment. Along with feeling tired and drained, there can also be that dread of having to go to work the next day, having to really force yourself into the work, whether you're an employee, whether you're a leader. Usually that dread exists because of the environment, because of the culture that's there. And then naturally that usually flows on to a high turnover of staff, because nobody is going to stay in that environment forever. Whether it's a leader, whether it's employees, usually people start coming up with a plan to get out of that environment, especially if they've tried a few things to change things and change the way they are, and they've got that mindset, this is the way it's always going to be, it's never going to be any better. That's usually where people start looking to move on. Now, on the flip side, a great culture, what does that look like? It's usually where the team are working as one. There's a vision, there's a mission for the company, there's a purpose for the company, and everybody is bought into that. Everybody knows the part they're playing in it. Everybody knows that they are influencing the outcome that we're trying to work towards. Everybody knows that regardless of the position we sit in the organization, that titles don't really matter, that we're all there to do a job, we're all there to do a role for the company and to take us closer to that vision, to that mission, to the goal, to the objectives of the company, whatever title we put on it. If there are issues, conflicts, which we're human beings, put a lot of us together, there's always going to be issues, there are always going to be conflicts. Good cultures address them conflicts and them situations very quickly, and they get a positive outcome for the business. So they don't let it foster, they don't let it build, they don't let it spread, they don't let it grow. And it's dealt in that professional manner. And yes, at times it can be uncomfortable. But if we ignore it, if we don't deal with it, if we don't address that situation, regardless of whether it's an employee, regardless of whether it's leaders talking to other peers within that senior leadership team or the business executive, it doesn't matter at which level. If it's conflict, it needs to be addressed, it needs to be resolved, and we need to be able to move forward together as a unit. That's the most important part, because that way everybody can go home feeling that they're still part of something, that they're still working towards that vision, that mission, that goal. They know that whenever there is issues, they're going to be dealt with and responded to in the correct manner. So that leaves them going home from work feeling good. And if we go home from work feeling good, chances are we are feeling good about coming back the next day. And if we can really get to the point where that feels like it's something special that we're creating, that there's that enjoyment of coming in the next day, that you're looking forward to work, that you're looking forward to the challenges that the new day is going to throw up. If we can instill that across the whole business, across the whole project, across the whole team, that's a really special culture. Culture that knows how important every employee in the business is. A culture that knows the employees are the key to the success of the business. Not just the leaders that's in the business, not just the plan we put in place for the business, but every single person that comes into our business is a key asset to the business. That we're investing in that asset, we're growing, we're developing, we're aligning their goals with the goals of the company. That is where we can really create a really strong culture. A culture where we're working towards that common purpose. So a few tips for leaders. If we're working in an environment and the culture's not quite right, a few things that I would suggest. First and foremost, we need to understand the importance of getting the culture right. Sometimes, from the discussions I've had with people over the years, some people just don't get that importance. They don't really put the value on having a really strong, powerful culture. They might say, yes, it's nice to have it, and yes, we have, but they can't actually put a value on it. Studies and research shows that the very low end of a positive culture can probably have about a 10% impact on the bottom line. Towards the top end, it can be anything up to 30, 40, 50% on the top line. Depends how far you actually go to measure it. Whenever we talk about the marketing of the business, the employee traction, the employee turnover, all them things. So somewhere between 10 and 25%. So there's a value on it. Obviously, that's why so many companies are focusing on it over the last 10 years, 15 years, which go alongside, of course, the moral side. It's the correct thing to do. Creating good work environment for people, more enjoyable for people's lives, more enjoyable for our families' lives. People that leave a good culture, go home in a good frame of mind, they're having a positive impact on their family around them. Likewise, negative culture, go home negative feelings, negative thoughts, negative influence on the people around them. So that's the other aspects of culture that very seldom we actually think of. So once we have that understanding of how important it is as a leader, as a business owner, as executives, then it's easy for us to start making the next steps that really matter to changing that culture. We should talk about the current state of our culture. If it's not right, if it's bad in the past before, we should own that. We should put our hands up and we should say this hasn't been good enough in the past. We have got this wrong as a business. Or if it's been good in the past and it has slipped, we own that as well. But if we're trying to make change, first and foremost, we need to understand where we're at and where we want to go. So how do we understand where we're at? Well, we seek feedback. We ask the people in our business, where can we improve? What are we doing well? What have we done well in the past before? What are we doing poorly? What would you like to see in the business? I often use the example of one time on site. Whenever I asked this very question, feedback was a hot tub. On a mine site, a hot tub was too far of a stretch for the business, but we explained that, we talked through it, and we come up with the quality suggestions. So yes, ask the feedback, filter out what's really important to our people, the things that we can influence, the things that we can change, and let's start changing them things. Let's start holding people accountable for the negativity, for the backstabbing, for the us and them mentality. Let's start educating and talking about the benefits of us being able to create a culture. So we put the vision out of the culture we want to create. We talk about the things that we need to do in order to get there. We measure that, we hold people accountable, and we work towards it. Yes, it'll be hard. Yes, it'll be difficult, but it can be achieved. If we do nothing, nothing changes. In fact, maybe even it gets worse, which shouldn't be an option. So that holding people accountable is an important aspect of that change and that development. And that can be uncomfortable, and it should apply to everybody. Everybody is held to the same standard. Doesn't matter whether you're the CEO, doesn't matter whether you're a new employee just started on the ground. Everybody has a role to play in the culture. It doesn't belong to the leaders, it doesn't belong to the employees. It's collective as a business, and everybody has to be working in the right direction in order to create that better culture. And we know it won't just happen overnight. We know it's not a magic wand scenario where poof, everything's perfect again. We understand that. But if it doesn't start, it's like any journey. It doesn't end. So the first step is finding out what we need to do, what's wrong, what's broken, how do we fix it? and moving in that direction. A few tips for the employees, very similar. If we're working as an employee in a business where the culture is broken and we don't highlight or talk about the culture being broken, then we're really just being compliant. We have a responsibility to speak up, to talk about it, especially if it's one of these businesses that do set the expectation for having a good culture, and nowadays most businesses do. Some businesses just get it right, some businesses don't quite get it right. But as an employee, we have a vital role to play in whether the culture is good. Are we one of the employees that are backstabbing, that are saying things negative about the business, that are talking behind people's back? Or just as bad, are we one of the employees that hear it and don't actually call it out, don't hold people accountable for it and say, look, that's not the way we work here. That's not the attitude we take. If we've got a problem, we take it to the management team. The management team listens and responds to it. And again, if you're getting no response from your management team, I encourage you as an employee to go to the manager above them. Most businesses nowadays have got the next level up approach, where if you're not getting the right response or the correct information or getting feedback from your current manager, you go to the next one. Now, I would encourage anybody to do this twice. If that doesn't happen at the next level, I would go to the next one, or I'd go to a similar peer. Don't just stop at the first one, because anybody can hit 2 bad leaders in a row. But I would really test it before I give up hope and throw up my arms and say, no, it's just never going to change. So fight back that negativity with positivity. Really talk about the good things that we're doing as a business. Focus on the good things, highlight the bad things, try and get them resolved. Focus on the good things that we're doing as a business, the good things that there is for a culture, and really spread that information across the business. So you've went to the manager, you've went to the leader, you've talked to them, but nothing's changing. It's now affecting you. This toxic work environment is now affecting you on a personal level. I strongly suggest that you come up with a plan to get out. I know that might be different for some people. Everybody has got responsibilities, everybody's got bills to pay. Put a plan in place, whether it's a month, whether it's 2 months, whether it's 6 months. Put a plan in place to leave that culture. Don't accept it. Don't just be part of it. Don't buy into it. Keep doing things the way that you should be doing them in a positive manner and move forward. That would be my biggest advice to any employee or any leader, because leaders will try to change it too and they're getting no response. But when it gets to the stage where you have tried as much as you can do and there's no change, the best thing to do is leave. And unfortunately, that's usually what happens if things don't start to change. Now, really good businesses put the focus on, okay, we have a problem, we have a challenge, we want to change and work through this. What do we do? They maybe call out to the like of ourselves for the help and the support, where we can train and work with the leaders and develop the leaders, and also work with the team to understand what's the real challenges, what's the real problems, whether it's communication, whether it's the skill level, whether it's no development in the team. There's usually reasons why the toxic culture starts and then why it grows and develops. So the like of using the coaching services or a service where they can come in and assess the business is a very good approach to that. As always, I hope you've got something from this video. If you happen to be watching it on YouTube, feel free to click the like and subscribe button. And for everybody else, thanks for joining us.